I had developed fibrosis, lots of medications. And I started looking also at my diet. And then somehow I came across Carnivore because I was going through all kinds of YouTube videos. This was at the time that they'd told my wife, they told me, hey, you're not going to make it through the night. Yeah, I'm really cherishing every moment that I have with my family, with my grandkids especially. I really enjoy the fact that I can be much more active with them. Even the increase in muscle, being able to carry them or walk around with them in my arms. And so now I've got that. I feel like there's a renewed energy where I can step out and I can do things that I could only think of before.
Well, welcome, Rob. It's a pleasure to have you here. You have a success story you'd like to share from us. Do you mind sharing what part of the world you're in, if that's okay?
Absolutely. I am in Marble Falls, Texas.
Okay, near Austin. Yeah, I used to live out there. I'll be there in a couple weeks. I guess let's just get started. Tell us about your background, what was going on with you, and how you got better.
Absolutely. I grew up as an active person. I always thought I was healthy and played football in junior high and gymnastics in high school and 10 years in the military, stayed healthy there, stayed active. Even after the military, did weightlifting and not serious. And I wasn't committed so much to the diet. It was all about just pushing the weights and such. But life happens. You get married, you have children, you have grandkids, and things slow down. And so for me, being active was really just building a home, which my wife and I started doing. We bought a little bit of land. And when it comes to diet or anything like that, it was just never really a priority. And then in July 26th of 2020, I got sick. Everyone knows that particular year and everything that happened. I got COVID. And I went into the hospital and was very quickly isolated, quarantined. I was put on high flow oxygen, and I spent a total of 72 days in the hospital. August 11th of 2020, we got a notification, my wife did, that I had developed pulmonary fibrosis. Don't know really if there was any kind of previous issue or concern. I don't ever remember feeling like I had any kind of problems with my health, but I think that from what I'm being told or what I had been told was that the COVID had exacerbated and caused the interstitial lung disease. And so I had developed pulmonary fibrosis as a result of COVID. At that time, I had 30% capacity in my lungs, and it was only in my left lung. My right lung had just closed off, scarred completely. And after, I think maybe 10 days of being in the hospital, they told my wife, called her into the ICU with me and told her that I wasn't going to live through the night. And they told us both, and I wasn't very coherent, so I can't really, I don't know that I could really put it into perspective on what was happening at that time. But I go back and I look at my notes and look at the Facebook posts that my wife put in and talked about. And as I reread those, it was really scary. And again, I just was not very coherent when all this was going on. So after 72 days, I got out of the hospital with, I would say, a miracle, but still struggled with, I've got pulmonary fibrosis, still have it. And let's see, that was 2020. We're in 2024 now, almost 4 years. I want to tell you about going into the hospital. I went into the hospital. I was probably about 205 pounds. I left the hospital at about 145. So pretty sick, pretty ill. And after a lot of medications and just being very sedentary and slowly building my appetite back up, I got into a place where I was 240 pounds. So almost 100 pounds after that hospital visit and having pulmonary fibrosis. Lots of medications. And when you're sick like that, you put a lot of trust into the doctors and the hospital staff, and you really want to believe that what you're taking is working for you. It's in your best interest to follow the instructions of the hospital, the doctor, whatever regimen they give you. You take your medications, do what you're told, and you're going to get better. I didn't really get better. I was very sedentary. And when you have grandchildren, you don't want to be like that. You want to be able to enjoy your time with your grandkids and even with your children, with your family. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't go out. I couldn't stay active. I just really couldn't do anything. And I'd go in and see the hospital staff and the doctors every 3 months, they'd want to see me and they would tell me, you're gaining weight, you need to be more active. Let's put you on this medication. Let's increase this dosage. And again, if you don't take the time to really search and look at what you're taking, it's surprising. And I don't even know how to say it. I finally did. I finally took that time after the last time I went to the cardiologist and my primary doctor and looked at my blood report, telling me that your cholesterol levels are out of the roof. Your weight has been dramatically increased. You are just extremely unhealthy. Now we got to put you on statins. Now we've got to increase your high blood pressure pills, your dosage, because it's not working. Your blood pressure is skyrocketing. And I followed the regimen. I followed it to a T until finally I took the moment and started to think about what I was really eating. I thought I was doing a pretty good job. I stayed off the red meats. I limited my fats. I increased my veggies. I went into fruits. I ate seeds and nuts and legumes and thought I was doing everything necessary to lose weight, to get healthy, to make myself feel better, to somehow prolong my life beyond what they said I would live with pulmonary fibrosis. And when you look at the medications, every single medication that I was on makes you drowsy, makes you tired. It increases weight gain. It was just very counterintuitive, is that the word, to what I thought it was supposed to be doing. You tell me I got to go and I got to get healthy. I got to be more active, but you're increasing the dosage that makes me drowsy, makes me tired, makes me sleepy. You give me medications that increase weight. And I started looking also at my diet. And then somehow I came across Carnivore because I was going through all kinds of YouTube videos, everything from looking up Mediterranean, looking up paleo, all kinds of vegan diets. I was Hollywood diet right off a Walmart shelf. You buy the little bottle and you mix it together and just you take that juice and think you're going to start losing weight, dropping weight. And I saw some of the before and afters of the carnivore diet. And it just made no sense, honestly. It's still, even today, when I'm enjoying a good steak and I've got a side of butter and I'm thinking, it just doesn't make sense. I wasn't raised to think this way. And it just worked a miracle. I started this carnivore diet, and within a week, and I'm not joking, within a week, I could not believe the change in my health and the way that I felt. The energy level just increased dramatically. The weight came off very quickly for me. Now, initially, maybe it was water. Maybe it was water weight, but it was progress. And that was motivation for me. It kept me thinking, wow, this is the direction I need to be going in. I feel better. I look better. My pants, they're not tight anymore. And then the waist starts to shrink a little bit. I found that I didn't need as much oxygen as I had been taking before. It was just a wonderful transformation that slowly began. And over the last 16 weeks, the change has just been so dramatic. And I want to be able to tell everyone about it. So in some of the videos that I've made, I talk about it, and I have been called, I never thought this would happen to me. I have been called a conspiracy theorist, even by some of the pulmonary fibrosis foundations, and not the Pulmonary Fibrosis Foundation, but some of the groups that I have joined, saying that you shouldn't be eating this way. It's not good for you. You can't cure pulmonary fibrosis. Your lungs cannot heal themselves. You're spreading lies. It's just, and it hurt my feelings. It still does to think about it. But the change has just been so dramatic. And I'm in this space in my head where I want to tell everyone, hey, there is an alternative out there that you probably never really thought of, that you had been told all your life, don't do this. Stay away from red meats. Stay away from fats. It's unbelievable how crazy this amazing lifestyle has been, such a positive and progressive change in my life.
Let me just ask a couple questions here, if you don't mind. So you were given this
Absolutely.
diagnosis of pulmonary fibrosis secondary to ICU, COVID, that type of stuff. At one point, lung function down to 30%, which is fairly severe. That is fairly significant pulmonary fibrosis. And a lot of people will say that life expectancy is not very long with that. There's a lot of people who tell us pulmonary fibrosis
3 to 5
carries
years.
2 to 4 year life expectancy or something along those lines. And just from an objective standpoint, were you using assistive oxygen for a long time afterwards, the hospitalization? How did your O2 stats and things like that start looking before and after carnivore? Where were you at?
Yes. So in the hospital, I was at a high flow of 90. Is it 90 liters? And I was at 90 liters. And this was at the time that they told my wife, they told me, hey, you're not going to make it through the night. It's just start preparing for a funeral. That's what they told my wife. A few days later, they said, okay, he's not going to live without a double lung transplant. So they worked very hard to get me away from the Baylor Scott and White where I was at in Marble Falls and get me med-flighted out to Methodist Hospital in Houston, where they began the preparation for the double lung transplant. Same thing. I was on 90 liters up until probably the time I was able to get out of the hospital. I was at, I think, 15 liters, just close to 15 liters. After leaving the hospital, I had been on oxygen therapy as high as I could go, which was 5 liters on the tanks, even on my concentrator, and slowly able to bring it down to about 3 liters. And that would be for anything that I tried to do, walking, showering, any kind of active work at all. Sleeping, I would be able to bring it down to about 2 liters, and that would be it. But yes, oxygen, I stayed on oxygen right till about starting the carnivore diet. And since then, which has been about 16 weeks now, I've only had to use it one time since that.
And how, just remind me again, because the time frame between you had the time in the hospital till you started carnivore was a couple of years, or what was the time frame again?
Years. I've only been on the carnivore diet for 16 weeks. Yeah, I had to go back and look at my notes. Yeah. So up until that time, which was 16 weeks ago when I started, I was pushing 235, 236. Cholesterol was way high. And this is where I need some learning and some education, because now I'm hearing if you have a high cholesterol, it's really not as bad for you as you think, because it balances out the hormones. So I don't know. I'm still getting educated on what is happening and all these changes that are taking place in my body as a result of the cholesterol, or as a result of the carnivore diet. And it's just been, it's a whole learning experience. All I can tell you is physically, there has been a dramatic change. And I would not be sitting here talking to you now without breathing extremely heavy and having to have my oxygen on 20 weeks ago.
Okay. So for several years, you were sitting without wearing oxygen. Just for several years. And so we can assume everything, because there's an acute phase and there's more chronic phase. So you chronically were on oxygen. You went carnivore, now you're off oxygen. With regard to the cholesterol question, I don't think it's as simple as high cholesterol doesn't matter. I think that's a little lacks nuance there. And
Right.
curiously, because you were overweight, is your cholesterol, did it go down? Did it go up? Did it go the same? You lost weight, I'm assuming, as well. Is that fair to say?
So before I went into the carnivore diet or started it, my cholesterol was at 280. And my wife has all the numbers on it, thank goodness, because I'm not really good at remembering all this. But I know that it was at 280, 282, 3 weeks. And I went and saw my cardiologist, and she'd recommended you need to get your blood work done again. So I didn't fast that morning, so they rescheduled it for me. And at that time, I had said, okay, I'm going to start this diet. I'm going to start this lifestyle. I'm going to start making a change. 3.5 weeks later, I went in, got my blood work done again. And I had been very committed to the carnivore diet at this time. When they took my cholesterol levels again, did the blood work, I was down to 186 on my cholesterol. So a huge drop. I didn't tell my doctor. I know some people have been bold and said, hey, what you're telling me isn't working. What you're sharing with me, the prescriptions. I haven't done that yet. And maybe at some point I'll get to that. But right now I'm in this phase where I'm learning. I'm excited. And I just can't believe the changes that are just taking place.
Yeah, it's consistent if you're overweight and if you're at, like, the data seems to indicate that if you're at class 2 obesity, a BMI above 35, where you might have been, depending on how tall you are, then you go on a low carb diet and your cholesterol actually goes down. But once you start getting leaner and leaner, it tends to go back up. And that's consistent with this so-called lipid energy model. So I would not be surprised if you get leaner and leaner that your cholesterol eventually goes back up there. Right. Now, the interesting thing to me, and I think that's an interesting aspect of it too, and something we're still learning about, but the interesting to me is you are on chronic oxygen. You were well past the acute phase. This wasn't something you were slowly getting better from getting over the acute illness. It's now a chronic disease. You've been living with it for years. You're on oxygen every day. You go carnivore, and now I don't need oxygen anymore, or I almost never need oxygen anymore. That's pretty cool. What has been the response of or maybe they haven't commented yet, your pulmonologist or whoever is dealing with your oxygen, your primary care physician, saying, hey, I don't use it anymore? Has there been any thought or response on that with regard to the medical folks?
I haven't talked to my pulmonologist or cardiologist. I have an appointment with them. Let's see, I see them now every 6 months instead of every 3 months. So I think my next appointment is in July. And I'm excited to say and let them know, hey, I've made these changes. My cardiologist, after I had the blood work done that second time, it was not much of an applause so much from my doctor as it was, okay, your numbers are looking better. Let's increase your statin. Let's increase your blood pressure pill. Let's see if we can get it to go down even further. I never went and picked up that prescription. In fact.
So you never took the statin is what you're saying? No. Okay. No. So it went down. Yeah, it went down just by changing the carnivore diet. So the doc's thinking you're taking statins and so on and so forth. Okay. Yeah. And again, that's consistent with this lipid energy model, which is interesting. Like I said, with the context of you being obese at the time. Now that you're, like I said, how much? So you started this 240-ish. Where are you at today? Or do you know?
Yes, I'm at 208. I keep fluctuating between 206 and 208. And I think, like you said, I think I've reached this point where I've maybe just hit a plateau, and maybe my lean muscle mass, or whatever you call it, has just stabilized, because I had never really been active prior to this. It was really just sedentary and being very heavy and trying to do everything just strictly on my eating, my diet, what I was doing. Again, I looked at everything and tried so many things with increasing veggies, eliminating red meats, eliminating fats as much as possible. But once I started the carnivore, there was just such a boost in the energy levels. I was able to go outside. I was able to start walking more. I was able to start doing more. And then the activity began working on the house, building a carport, just all kinds of things, mowing the lawn. Simple things like that a lot of us probably take for granted in just doing everyday life. For me, was just such a huge joy, because I was active again. I was doing something. I was mobile. I was outside. I was enjoying the sun, and it was just it felt like a new person. And so maybe I'm building some muscle again, and that's why the weight has just stayed. But yeah, I think, let's see, I went from a 40 pant size down to a 34. That's high school for me. So it's just been amazing. It really has been amazing.
If you don't mind sharing, Rob, how old are you?
I am 55 years old.
55. So yeah,
yes,
so definitely later in life, but you can certainly, you can do a lot. You can do a hell of a lot in your 50s, I can tell you for sure. But let me ask you about any other benefits you might have noticed. Obviously, the lung thing is huge. Weight loss is always great. Let me ask you another question, because this is interesting. Because a lot of people say they just lost weight, and that's why his breathing got better. How long did it take your breathing to start getting better once you shifted over to carnivore, and had you lost much weight at that point?
I would probably say about between the second and third week, maybe 2.5 weeks in, when I really started to notice a change in my breathing, taking my blood pressure, sitting there looking at my oxygen levels, that even moving around and walking around, I could maintain an oxygen level of 92, 95 and feel really good. Whereas before, just getting out of the shower, I would drop to high 70s, low 80s with my O2 levels. Mm-hmm. So it was, yes, the increase or the loss of weight helped a lot. I'm sure it did in my breathing, but lung capacity, I feel like I can take in a full breath and even hold it for a while. Whereas it just was not possible before.
Yeah. So within 2 weeks, you're seeing a change. You probably hadn't lost more than a few pounds in 2 weeks. I can't imagine you lost 40 pounds in 2 weeks.
No, I think as I look back at that, I think it was probably about 10 pounds, about 10 to 12 pounds, and then slowly just increasing and increasing. This was a time when getting on the scale was exciting for me. And even if I didn't feel like I had lost a whole lot of weight from looking at the scale, then all of a sudden it was the clothes. It was the clothes that I should not have been wearing because I didn't want to go out and buy extra large or these added X's to the clothing. I was in a little bit of denial there. XL, okay, I'll accept that. But it was tight. Everything was tight then. And even then, I still struggled to get into a 38 pant size because I just didn't want to go and get any larger. So I just try to squeeze that waist. And after a couple of weeks, it was such a noticeable improvement.
Let me just dig more into this, because you said you got out of the hospital weighing 140 and then you were bad lungs, and at 240, maybe that was your top weight. You probably had been 230 prior to gaining all that weight, bad lungs. And when you were lighter, you still had bad lung issues, correct?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So it wasn't just absolutely where the weight was coming from. It might have helped ultimately. Right. What other things did you notice with regard? Because some people notice weird stuff like, I don't know, more energy. Their is better. Their mood is better. Any other skin is better. Any other things you saw that occurred due to this that you hadn't expected or noticed?
I think my cognitive levels definitely increased. Coming out of the hospital, first of all, I wasn't expected to leave the hospital. I wasn't expected to be in there as long as I was either, at least living. But I really struggled with brain cloud, a lot of fogginess, just really couldn't retain much information at all. Trying to do any kind of work on the computer, trying to remember things, small details, even for a short amount of time was difficult. Staying focused on a particular task or an action item was almost impossible without having a lot of notes around me or having my wife just being there to remind me, hey, this is what we're doing. This is where you're at. There were a lot of issues with that. Same, again, once doing the carnivore diet, once changing my eating habits, once increasing all these things that really don't make sense to me to work. Just because I don't know the science of it, it made a change, a dramatic change to where I can think more clearly. I can function mentally much better than I was able to before.
Let me ask you, so carnivore diet, what do you eat? Just for people that kind of will say, what is he eating? What does he do? We
went and we found a local rancher or local cattle ranch, And we started buying all of our meats from this local cattle rancher. And it's steaks. A lot of times it's not always prime rib, but New York strips with butter, a lot of ground beef, a lot of hamburger. I include chicken. I like chicken. So butter, a lot of butter. Oh, geez, what else? I have added fish to my diet as well. And my mornings usually start with protein powder, which is the beef protein. I don't know if that's great for you or not, but it sure hasn't seemed to cause any problems for me. It's a good way for me to get my proteins. I still struggle to eat. I think that I'm not getting as much protein as I need to, simply because I don't think that I can eat that much. But usually a good steak in the morning with eggs, and then maybe a hamburger patty or half a hamburger patty is probably about my limit for the day. Is all I can do. So I really depend on the protein drink, the beef protein drink to help supplement what I'm probably lacking in proteins.
And let me ask you this, because obviously you said your wife was there during the time when you're in the hospital in the ICU, and they told you basically get the morgue ready because he's not going to make it, or double lung transplant. And now you going on carnivore. Was she like, what are you doing? You barely survived this and now you're making yourself work? What's been the response, family and friends, to this?
My wife, who has been, and I got to say this is really important. I got to mention this. For anyone who has pulmonary fibrosis or some kind of severe illness, someone to be with you and support you, a caregiver, caretaker, is so important. And my wife has been that person for me, still is. She wanted me to do just whatever it's going to take for you to get healthy and to increase your longevity in life. If you think that this carnivore diet is going to help, then let's give it a try for a short term. Let's give it a test. And we watched videos. We watched a lot of the before and after videos of individuals who have lost weight, who have talked about the carnivore diet, because my wife knows that we had tried the other diets and we had tried eliminating the fats, the high fats and the red meat, and it wasn't working for me. It wasn't a benefit to my health, according to what I'm hearing from the doctors, what they're saying, my blood work, and then even just the way my body is responding. It's not working. So it was a big step to take this and say, okay, we're going to go the opposite way, and we're going to increase red meats. We're going to increase fats. We're going to do the beef, bacon, butter, and eggs and see what happens. And she was okay with, let's test the waters. Let's see how you do a couple of weeks, see how you feel, see if there are any dramatic changes. And that's how I got started with her support. And she is all in it now. She, to the point where now she's following this regimen along with me and supporting me in that by following this same diet.
And she's benefited from it as well, or no?
Yes. Even on here, Dr. Baker, you're not going to get me to say that my wife was heavy before. I'm not going to say that, but I'm going to say that she feels better. I think she looks better. She was beautiful before. She's even more beautiful now. Yes, she has had to go shopping, whereas that was a problem before, because even if you have young daughters or young girls, if they have an issue with their weight, they don't want to shop so much. They don't want to try on clothes until they feel better. My wife loves to shop now. I think that's okay for me sometimes. But yeah, trying on clothes where it used to be a problem before is not a problem now. She looks great. Yeah, I'm going to stop there before I get myself in trouble.
Yeah, if she's buying a bunch of clothes, it may run up the bills a little bit. That may be an
right.
issue. Some of the downsides people have complained about carnivores, they got to buy new wardrobes and stuff like that. And
yes.
So on and so forth. Let me ask you about, this is interesting because you said you're in these pulmonary fibrosis online communities, support groups, whatever they might be, and they don't hear about this stuff. They're like, What's been the response, and what has it been like trying to share this with these groups that potentially could very well benefit from this?
It has been both good and bad. I've had some individuals contact me and say, hey, what are you eating? What are you doing? How are you feeling now after so many weeks? Are you still using your oxygen concentrate? What are your oxygen levels like? How is your blood pressure? And then I have some of the moderators from some of these groups flat out call me a conspiracy theorist.
What do you mean conspiracy theory? What are they saying conspiring? That eating meat helps pulmonary fibrosis is a conspiracy?
Because I get on there and I like to say, I feel if you change your diet, if you try this, you're going to feel better. I'm not telling people you're going to be healed. I'm not going to say that. I'm not telling people that they'll eliminate their pulmonary fibrosis and it will go away. I'm not saying that. But I do get on there and I'm a very big proponent of this diet, this lifestyle change will increase your energy. You possibly won't need your oxygen as much as you normally do now. You will probably eliminate a lot of the medications. Dr. Baker, I was on 21 medications when I left the hospital. And I got to where I think 3 weeks in to just completely eliminate all of them except for one. I still take one blood pressure pill. I had 4 that I was taking. I take one. My blood pressure remains right about 117 to 128 on the high side, and then down to anywhere from 78 up to about 92, 92, 94. So it's my blood pressure is so much better than it was before. And that's what I'm trying to tell a lot of individuals. This thing can do wonders for you if you give it a try. I'm not saying it's going to heal you, but you're going to feel better. You're going to your energy levels are going to be increased like you won't believe. And yeah, as far as the conspiracy title, that's what they're saying is they're coming back and saying, you're talking about healing pulmonary fibrosis. You're saying that people can get better. Pulmonary fibrosis is incurable. Their lungs are not going to get better. They need to stay on their medications. Don't tell them to get off their medications. So that's some of the things that I deal with. And I try to preface everything by saying, these are my personal experiences. This is what is happening to me. And I believe that a change in this lifestyle would definitely benefit you if you gave it a try.
Yeah, just speaking of the meds you're on, my assumption is you were on maybe some anti-inflammatories, maybe chronic corticosteroids or inhaled steroids, perhaps some of the asthma medicines to help open the airways. Are those things you were on, and you were able to wean those off yourself, or did someone wean you off of those, or how did you make that decision?
And maybe this is the conspiracy part of it too, is that I did not take medical or doctor consultant information to do this. Here's, I don't know if I can show this on here or not, but my OFEV bottle, I've got it here. I covered up the title. Yeah, OFEV albuterol inhaler. Let's see what else. Plavix, Crest, metoprolol, gabapentin, Lipitor, lisinopril, prednisone. These are all just a list of the medications that I was on. And I read for myself. I got online and I just had my wife help me. What are these medications doing to me? What are their side effects? And every single one of them just was countering what the doctors were telling me I needed to do. They're all making me drowsy. They all have, or some of them have weight increase. And so can I go into a doctor's office or any medical office and say, I'm not able to be active, or I'm not able to change my weight gain or anything else like that. And then they increase these medications that do exactly that. They increase your weight. They make you tired. And they keep you from being active. They take away your energy. So it's just, would you call that counter conspiracy theory? It's just, it's well known that many of these drugs have
Yeah, it's well known. Many of these drugs have side effects, many of which you prescribe, and
Right.
like I said, they're all very. I mean, from the list you rattled off are pretty common drugs. They're widely utilized, and it's. Do you need an asthma inhaler if you never have an asthma attack anymore? It's maybe not. Maybe you don't need that anymore. A lot of these are. There's some drugs you'll take to keep the inflammation under control, but if you're no longer consuming a diet that leads to inflammation, maybe you don't need it anymore. So I don't find a conspiracy. There is obviously more to come on this story because it will be interesting to see. Because have you had pulmonary function tests? They'll do PFTs and things like that, where they'll assess vital capacity, lung capacity, tidal volumes, all that stuff. Is that scheduled? Do you do that periodically? That might be interesting.
Every 6 months.
Yeah,
yes.
It'll be interesting to see how that turns out, because if you've dramatically improve that over something that has been chronic and basically staying the same, then that's remarkable in my view. And some people might say it's just because he lost 40 pounds, and that's the thing. But as you said, when I was this weight before, I had really bad lung capacity. Maybe you were still in the acute phase, and that might be what's going on. But irrespective of that, however, and whatever the mechanism is, it's working, whether it's just weight loss and Carnivore's allowed you to do that, or if it's a decrease in inflammation that has improved the lungs. Pulmonary fibrosis is, basically scarring of the lungs, and the question is, is there any capacity we have to reverse some of the scarring? And I would say, I would suspect there's probably some limited ability. I've seen people with hypertrophic scarring in their skin where they have keloids and things like that, and those have actually shrunken on carnivore. Maybe there is some capacity to improve overall lung structure function with the right diet. So I wouldn't be surprised to see that. So it'll be fun to see how your function levels have improved and what the pulmonologist will have to say, because it may be another head scratcher. It may turn into another ways, well, we might have misdiagnosed you, which I often hear, it must have been a misdiagnosis then because you can't get better. We'll just have to see how that turns out. Hopefully you'll share that when you get those.
Oh, absolutely. I'm excited about the change. Go ahead. Yes, sir.
Yeah. I wanted to just be fair, because I don't want this to paint this always as sunshine and rainbows and stuff like that. At least ask the question. Maybe it is. Maybe it is all sunshine and rainbows. But negative. Has there been any negatives that have happened since you started going carnivore? Can you think of anything, how your quality of life, health, anything's gotten worse for you?
You're right. It's not all sunshine and rainbows. I have issues with, I don't know I hate to say it, diarrhea. Bowel movements. I do have issues with my stomach at times. I'm finding out what foods are working for me or not. I like fruits a lot. I had learned to really enjoy them prior to being on the carnivore diet. And then trying to go back on them and enjoy them has caused a problem. I find that if I do increase fruits, salads, there's a problem with my stomach. So that has been an issue. As far as the diet itself, I can't say that I've really experienced anything dramatic that I've noticed to the diet itself that has caused a problem. Really, when I look at where I was before to where I am now, it mostly has been just a pro for me.
That's fair enough. Like I said, many people, they say that everything's good. So that's fine to know. It's always nice to see what that might be. What are your goals at this point? Because like I said, 3-4 years ago, you told your dad and you had double lung transplant, and you said most of your life you've just been basically not very active. How has this opened up, or has it opened up other aspirations, goals, thoughts about the future?
Yeah, I'm really cherishing every moment that I have with my family, with my grandkids especially. I really enjoy the fact that I can be much more active with them. Even the increase in muscle, being able to carry them or walk around with them in my arms, it's just been wonderful. Now, as far as future goes, I've got this land out here that I'd really like to do a whole lot more to. And so now I've got that. I feel like there's a renewed energy where I can step out and I can do things that I could only think of before and just be much more active. That's the big thing for me, is to just move, to not be stuck behind a window, sitting down and having my oxygen concentrator on, having to walk around with a cannula and a tank all the time. That was so restrictive in anything that I wanted to do. And so now I'm really just enjoying every opportunity that I have to be outside and to work or to play or to just move around. So that has been just a big plus, and I'm going to keep moving forward. I'm going to keep talking to individuals and saying, hey, you can get better. You can feel better if you try this. See what happens. It makes no sense. It absolutely makes no sense. It still doesn't to me. I can sit at a table or I can enjoy a meal, my carnivore diet meal, my steak, my eggs, my butter, my bacon, and still just be flabbergasted and wonder, how the heck is this healthy for me? But it is, and I feel amazing and I'm enjoying it. But it just, I'm still in awe. I still am shocked. And probably because I'm still in the beginning phase of doing this. After 16 weeks, I'm learning things. I'm learning things about my body as far as what it likes and what it doesn't like. I've never paid attention to that before. Diet for me has never really been a huge priority for me. And even after getting sick, it was really just focusing on the medications. Take your medications, follow your doctor's orders, and that's how you're going to live longer. Wow. Was that incorrect?
Yeah, fair enough. And so your wife, do you have kids or any other family members that have been affected by this? Obviously, they're probably happy that you're not dead. That's probably, has that impacted the entire family? You're wearing a meatitarian shirt, so obviously they got to know you're a big fan of this now.
Yes, absolutely. I am. No, it hasn't. It hasn't affected my family. After a week after I started this, my youngest daughter had a birthday party and she wanted Italian food. So we took her to a big Italian restaurant and we had all the family there. And there were all these pastas and breads and everything that were on the table. And I just looked at all of it. Mouth was watering, wish I could enjoy it all. And somehow I found a way to indulge and still eat without ruining the diet that I had just started, because I wanted to stay committed to it. And I did, but no, it didn't affect the family. They haven't gotten to the point where they're shying away from the flaming hot Cheetos or anything like that. The kids are still enjoying that and they're doing their thing, and I'm not going to push it on anybody, but they do see the difference. They notice the difference, and it has made them excited. And now they don't have to really take into account, if we want to have a family outing, what can we do that dad can't do? What do we have to be mindful of? Now we can go bowling, we can go to the arcades, we could, wherever we want to go now. You don't have to worry about me so much and worry about whether or not I'm going to be able to walk around with an oxygen concentrator or anything like that. There's so much more freedom not being bound to that anymore. So I would say, if it did have an effect on my family, it's been a positive one.
Yeah, having to lug an oxygen tank around everywhere you go is obviously problematic. And
goodness.
So you said you've had to use it once in the last 4 months. What prompted that? Was that something like extra activity, or what caused it at that point?
The Texas heat. Oh, the Texas heat and the humidity. So when I started this, it was still during the winter months. So for some reason, the winter months, the cooler weather, being able to be outside, it seems to be better for me. I seem to be able to function better when the weather's not just extremely hot. And then last week, I was outside and working on the carport and just enjoying the energy and not thinking about the fact that it was 91 degrees and 70% humidity outside. And after about an hour of being out there, I got very faint and had to go inside. And my wife jumped at it and checked my oxygen levels, and it was in the low 80s. And she called it then and said, "That's it. You're done for the day." And so, yeah, I had to get on my oxygen and put it on. And so exertion, it was pretty heavy exertion. I was going up and down a ladder, walking across the roof, and being in that heat. Yeah, it's not completely gone. It was a good reminder, hey, you still have pulmonary fibrosis. You still have this illness. You still have this disease you have to be mindful of. Sure, you feel better. You look better. You've got more energy. You don't need your oxygen as much, but there's still this existing issue that you're going to have to deal with. And that was a good reminder.
Yeah, fair enough. Are you sharing this outside of the groups you're on, the local people in the family? Obviously, you're talking on this show. Are you on social media? I think you mentioned you might have a YouTube or something. Is that what you're doing?
I am. Yes. And mostly, initially, it was just so that I could be held accountable. I wanted to put it out there, and mostly for family and friends who would say, "Hey, I thought you started this diet. What happened to it? Where are your updates? What I thought you were doing this whole red meat and fat thing, and it was supposed to work for you." So that's how it started. So I put it out on social media. And again, it was just so that I could be held accountable, that friends and family would talk to me about it and ask me about it and want to know, what are your results? Are you progressing? Are you feeling better? And that's where it began. And slowly it began to build a small audience. And then I had individuals start asking me questions, say, "Hey, you've got pulmonary fibrosis, but you're doing this that really goes against everything you should be doing. You've got heart disease, you've got high blood pressure. We know all about this. You're pretty heavy. You're a little bit overweight there. Should you be doing this?" And then they ask me questions and I answer them and say, "Hey, this is my experience. This is what is happening. This is how I feel today. Tomorrow may be a little different. I still have my days where not everything is perfect. I have had a couple of days where, man, I just got to stay in bed. I can't move. I don't feel too good. Maybe I wore myself out a little bit the day before, but yeah, it's been a good way of keeping me accountable."
Fair enough. And has that been received fairly well? Are you getting a lot of good, bad criticism? A lot of people happy
Most
about
of
it?
it has, probably about 95% of it has been very good. And even initially, I had family say, "Hey, you've been on this high fat red meat diet here. You really need to go talk to your doctor. You need to see if you're okay." And those minds have changed. They've seen the difference in the way that I'm presenting myself in these videos, how I look, how I feel, how I talk, how I speak, not needing the oxygen behind me. So it's been a very positive reception, and most of my feedback has been very positive as well.
Yeah, that's wonderful to hear. And have you heard, you said you've heard from some other pulmonary fibrosis people. Have you seen any of them also do something similar? Because this is not something a lot of people, I've seen some people with COPD, which is a little bit different, improve clearly on carnivore, but I haven't heard too many there's people actually with cystic fibrosis that are trying this with some level of efficacy. But have you seen anybody else that's corroborated, say, "Hey, I've been on keto, I've been on carnivore, and my lung function is also better," or has it just been you so far?
So far, it's just been me. People have said, "You're a guinea pig, you're an experiment, and I want to see how things go with you. And if they seem to keep positive, then maybe I'm going to try this as well." And you know what? I don't mind leading the way. I'm just gonna stay with it because it's doing wonders for me.
Yeah, thanks. And like I said, a lot of us are the tip of the spear. We are the pioneers, if you will. We're blazing the trails for others to follow, perhaps. And somebody's got to do it. So thanks for doing that. Share, Rob, we're almost out of time. So share with me your YouTube, social media handles, anything you would like to do so people might want to ask you more questions later. Where can they go?
Yes, sir. It's Carnivore Lung Journey. So if you look up on Facebook, on Instagram, on YouTube, you just look Carnivore Lung Journey, all one word. You'll find me there. And I would love to have any answers or questions, because I have a lot of questions as well. 16 weeks in, I'm still learning this whole thing, but I can tell you it's all been great so far.
Let's see, Carnivorelungjourney. So you said you'll get your pulmonary function, next set of tests will be in July, correct?
In July, yes.
That'll be interesting to see how your pulmonologist reacts. So depending, particularly if they dramatically improve, and that's not expected to happen.
Yeah.
All right, Rob, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thanks for this. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you so much. It was an